Okay, so welcome to our transactional analysis course, which is going to hopefully run for 20 sessions. Today is our 5th session. Am I right?
Yes.
Fifth. Okay. So our last session ended on complementary transactions. Okay. I'm going to read just a dialogue so that we just recap the complementary transaction bit. So let us say the father says to the son, did you deposit those checks in the bank which I gave you yesterday? The son says, I'm just leaving for the bank to deposit them. The father says, I wanted you to deposit them yesterday. The son says, I was busy in college and so couldn't find the time. The father is speaking from the parent and the son is replying from the child, because the father wants the child or the son to listen to him. This becomes a complementary transaction. Now, the question is, will all complementary transactions be pleasant, or you think complementary transactions can also be unpleasant? Anybody can answer.
अनप्लेजेंट भी हो सकते
Correct? Unpleasant
सकता
भी हो
Can be
सकता है.
unpleasant. Yeah.
Correct.
Unpleasant.
Correct. So this conversation began very simply, right? The father saying something to the child replying to the father, the son replying to the father. It was a PC-CP transaction. Now, the same transaction can become unpleasant also. But the father may continue saying, aren't you going to be more responsible? I don't send you to college to take part in your college functions. You should have gone to the bank yesterday. And the son may say, Dad, please don't say this, and this could go on. So a complementary transaction can be pleasant and a complementary transaction can be unpleasant too. Okay. Now, let us move to cross transactions today. I think this you'll have understood perfectly well. So we have gone through this. Now, let's go through cross transaction. So what is a crossed transaction? Let us understand that first. Now, the same complementary transaction could have become crossed also, where the son could have moved from the child ego state into an adult ego state. If the son, so far, the father was in the P, parent ego state, the son was in the C. Then the son replied again from the C to the P, the father continued from the P to the C. Again, the son can reply from C to P. So this parallel transaction can continue in an unpleasant manner. It started with pleasant, but then turned to unpleasant. The same transaction can be crossed also. How can you cross a transaction? So one of them breaks the cycle by coming from a different ego state. So the child moves to the adult and say, Dad, let's just stop this argument here. Let me go to the bank. That's it, finished. So instead of the C to P, he moves to A and crosses the transaction. So the one way is where one of them, the father of the son, breaks the cycle by speaking from a different ego state. Second way of crossing the transaction, the father or the son feels he has made his point and ends the transaction. Dad, enough. Ends the transaction, that also becomes a cross transaction. He's talking from the C, he moves to the P, okay, kind of critical parent, and says, let us stop this, and stops the transaction. Third, one or both of them have received enough strokes or attention they wanted. Why do transactions continue? Because we need attention. That's all. Because we need attention, which could be negative or positive, transactions continue. So when their hunger for attention had stopped, maybe the father needed attention from the son. There are many different kind of relationships that continue only because you want attention. That's all. Have you seen a spousal kind of relationships? There are many men or women who will tell counselors that they are in an unhappy marriage, but they don't want to drop out of the marriage. Why? Most of them will say, oh, if I leave my husband or wife, I won't find anybody. I won't find anybody else. So I'm okay. I'm okay with this. Oh, sometimes she or he is very good. So it's all right. For those times, let me be with this person. Why? Because the attention that they needed, they are getting. Like today, one of my cousin sisters, yesterday actually in the night, or today morning, she called me up and she was having some medical condition and she'd gone for the medical opinion and all that. And her husband is a very well educated, intelligent man, but emotionally unavailable for her. He's 81 and she's nearly 79. Okay, they've been married for I don't know how long, 50, 55 years maybe. And when she's in a very low mood, she calls me up. Okay. So today I spoke to her and I said, well, how is your husband doing? And did he even inquire how you are? And she said something. She said that, he said to me that, look, you better look after yourself. After all, now we are only two of us. The sons are all married, right? So now we are only two of us. I said, so how did you feel with that? She said, I just felt I was attended to. He never even went with her to the doctor, okay? But just that statement that now we are just the two of us and we have to look after each other. I said, so it may be 6, 8, 9 months, she must have heard this statement of being attended to. So relationships continue like this. Transactions also continue like this because maybe the husband tells her once in a while that, make this for me, send this in the tiffin. I will come home and eat today. I will not be late. These little statements made from the adult to her child makes her feel wanted. So transactions like this stop. Cross kab hota hai? When your attention, whatever attention you needed, you have already got, the transactions will stop. Okay. Now let us move to an example of cross transactions given here. A cross transaction is one in which the ego state addressed is not the one which responds.
I have
So
a
the
question
ego state,
here.
yeah, somebody wants to say something? Somebody wants to say, okay. So please mute yourself, okay? So the father is responding to the child, the son. So PCCP. Now, the ego state I am addressing does not address me back. The ego state is changed by the opposite person, and that ego state addresses me. It becomes a cross transactions, as you have seen here in this diagram. So, stimulus, facilitator addresses Radhika with a relaxed, calm face, telling her, we started the class at 10 a.m., adult to adult, having the adult to respond. What does the facilitator want? That Radhika should respond from the A to A, parallel. But what does Radhika do? In a complaining tone, with moist eyes, Radhika answers, what do I do? The roads were dug and the traffic was too much. So what did respond? What is the ego state that responded in Radhika? The child. Not the adult. She could have said, I'm sorry. That's it. Or, sir, it will not happen again. Something like that. But from an adult tone. But what did she do? She became Instead of responding from the A, which the professor expected, she responded from the C, crossing the transaction as if viewing the teacher as a parent. She didn't view the teacher as a teacher, but she viewed the teacher as a parent. And so she moved from here to here and responded to the P. This becomes a cross transaction. Got the idea? Let's look at another example here. Wife and husband. Wife, I have been suffering from fever since morning. Now I'm feeling uneasy. So what is the wife? Responding from the child. I've been suffering from fever. I'm feeling uneasy. Expecting attention. Expecting attention from the husband, who should act like a parent. Correct? This is a very common thing. Right? So she is sending the vector to the parent. And what does the husband do? Medicine for fever is available in the cupboard. So he's not responding from the parent. Otherwise, it would have become a complementary transaction. He's moving from here to here. From the adult, he's responding to the adult, expecting the wife to take responsibility. So this becomes a cross transaction. Got the idea? There are many examples of this. Father, don't play now, go and study. So parent to C, P to C. And what does the son do? Physical exercise, make our mind healthy. I should play now for some time. So he is giving the parent some gyan, knowledge. Okay. So he is not responding from the C to the P, oh, sorry, daddy, I'm going to study. Nothing like that. He says physical exercise is equally important. I should play for some time and then go to study. So he has moved from the C to P, C to A, and responding from the adult. Okay. So this is how impudence, this particular kind of transaction is called impudence. If the child gives factual data to the opposite person and parent is expecting compliance, but the child acts in an impudent manner. I'm sure many of you can understand this kind of transaction. Okay. This is also a cross transaction. John and Maria. John says, let's have fun. John is speaking to the C of Maria. Let's have fun. Fun is about child, okay? So he's in the child ego state, speaking to the child, expecting the opposite person's child to give a response. But Maria says what? From the parent, can't you be ever serious? So what is the ego state of Maria? Parent, critical parent, telling the child of John. This is how you have to understand crossed transactions. I'm sure many of you have got it now. So we can go to one more where we can divide the P and the C into CP, NP, FC, AC. Little bit further, right? So far we were doing PAC of two people. Now let us look at the cross transaction where there is a CP, NP, FC, AC, and they are talking to each other. So there is this person from FC, he's saying, can I have an ice cream? You know, like the FC, the free child says, can I have an ice cream? Which is the FC is speaking to the NP, the nurturing parent, in the parent. Mane, in a person, whoever it is, the FC of one person is appealing to the NP of the opposite person. Please, can I have an ice cream? But this person is not responding from the NP. That person is responding from the CP. Definitely not. Okay, expecting the AC of the opposite person to respond. So when you speak from CP to FC, उसने बात नहीं किया. He spoke from CP to AC because the AC becomes compliant. FC will not comply, but the AC will comply, become obedient. Obedience is a virtue or a quality of the AC, not of the FC. So this is how we keep responding in cross transaction. Cross transaction can be extremely useful in an argument. Where you're fed up of this argument, cross it and leave the transaction. Okay? But what happens with people? They do unpleasant complementary transactions rather than crossing the transaction. And then they carry a lot of hurt and, sense of feeling like I'm not worthy or something like that. Lack of self-worth comes when you allow unpleasant complementary transactions to continue, you argue, and you want to prove a point, then you will keep having complementary transactions like the father and the son. But when you are aware that this transaction is not going anywhere, cross the transaction, shift your ego state and cross the transaction. Okay. So what is the second rule of communication? Whenever the transaction is crossed, a breakdown in communication results and something different is likely to follow. Eric Berne calculated that in theory, there are 72 possible varieties of practice of cross transactions. Thankfully, 2 of those are by far the most common in practice. These occur when adult-to-adult stimulus is crossed by either child to parent or parent to child. Okay, there are many, many different kinds of transactions, but these are the commonly seen transactions. The transaction begins from one person, adult, expecting the opposite adult to respond, but actually the P of the C responds, crossing the transaction completely. Okay. Understood about cross transaction? It's quite easy. Now let us go to the third kind of transaction called...
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, in the previous slide, where does the rebellious child fall in? We talked about FC and AC. Rebellious child kahan hai usme?
So rebellious child is part of FC. Like this,
Okay.
This can be divided further into 3 also. Child, remember? It can be divided into 4 actually. Okay, you can have a little professor. You can have the rebellious child who's going to throw, let's say, a temper tantrum. You can have an FC, positive, negative. So negative FC is the rebellious child. Okay, AC negative,
Okay,
and AC positive becomes the little professor who's like a smarty, who's a smart person. Like the one that you saw here, here, okay, in this person, okay, who said physical exercise make up our mind healthy. Yeah, that is like a smart person giving back the answer. He's not acting in a rebellious manner. He's speaking from the little professor, teaching the father something. Got the idea? So the child can be divided further. FC positive, FC negative. FC negative will become the rebellious child. AC positive, AC negative. AC positive becomes the little professor, and AC negative becomes the compliant child. Where you just comply because you can't raise your voice. Got the idea?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's move to the third kind of transaction called the ulterior transaction. It's a very interesting transaction. Most transactions are ulterior in nature. You will see that. In an ulterior transaction, 2 messages are conveyed at the same time. One of this is overt or social message, and the other is covert or psychological message. Now, at the social level, content is more adult to adult. At the psychological level, it's either PC or CP. Now, let us understand this further. There are 2 types of ulterior transactions. One is called the Angular transaction, and the other is called the Duplex transaction. It's very interesting. Please pay attention. Okay. Now, let's go here. This will be the. Okay, let me see. Okay, let's look at the first kind of ulterior transaction called the angular transaction. Now, remember in the ulterior transaction, the social message is always A to A. The vector that the stimulus vector will always be A to A. Okay, please understand this. The stimulus vector, that means I initiate the conversation. I am wanting to talk to the adult of the opposite person, A to A. But the returning vector, the response vector, is either from a C or a P. Now let us see what happens. Look at this. Salesman, this is the salesman and this is the customer. Salesman says, this pen set is the best, but it costs more. This is the social message. This pen set is the best, but it costs more. Factual. He's giving some factual data to the customer. So this factual data is now coming from the A to A. So, but what is the ulterior motive of the salesman? To sell it. That is his ulterior motive. So he sends one social message, which is overt, which I can see, to the adult of the opposite person, but at the same time, he is sending a psychological message to the customer. This is marked in dotted lines. And the psychological message going to the customer is, see, it's good, but you can't have it. Okay, I'm sure we've all experienced this while shopping. Now, because a person who responds from the covert message, from the psychological message, is the child. Customer says, that's the one I will take. I'm going to take that one only. Why? Because the psychological message is already working in the customer's mind. I'll show you what I can afford and what I can't. So he responds from the C to the A. Got the idea? So this is called an angular message, angular transaction, because it involves three ego states. 1, 2, 3. This ego state is caught by the salesman, and this ego state responds to the adult of the opposite person. This is a typical angular transaction. An angular transaction involves three ego states, and a duplex transaction involves 4 ego states. That's the difference. Angular transaction involves 3 ego states. A duplex transaction involves 4 ego states. Let us look at one more angular transaction. The angular transaction involves 3 ego states and occurs when messages are sent simultaneously from one ego state of the initiator to 2 ego states of the respondent, like we saw the salesman and the customer. Okay? So here also there are 2 people here. The stimulus is social, overt, and covert psychological, just mentioned here. Youngster to his mother. Youngster to his mother. Ma, there is a good concert coming up, but the tickets are too expensive. So that is the social message going to the mother. Tickets are too expensive. Well, such youngsters already know that their mums are going to give in to them. Only that youngster will say this. All youngsters will not speak like this. Okay. So the youngster, there's a good concert, mom, but the tickets are too expensive. So now, what is the message going from the parent? There is a social message going to the parent, go buy the tickets. And there's also a psychological message that is gone from the son to the mother. Oh, mom, I'm your favorite son, right? You better, don't say no. Some psychological message is gone. And so this is how the Angular transaction takes place. Okay. So anybody can give me a message for the Angular transaction? Where and who do you think uses Angular transactions? Can you tell me? Generally, where would you see Angular transactions being used?
When between parents and children,
Parents and children. But generally, where would you see such Angular transactions being used?
sales, in
Sales,
sales,
correct.
Advertising.
Sales pitches,
Even advertising.
commercial advertising. Advertising use Angular transactions all the time. So let us say a particular soap is going to bring out your beauty. That's an Angular transaction. Or a particular deodorant, your armpits will not smell. So that's also an Angular
Or
transaction.
brands using
Brands,
Ma'am,
all
fair-
brands are using Angular transactions. A particular
fairness,
thing, where
celebrity endorsements.
celebrity, yes, absolutely, celebrity endorsement. This is all Angular there is always a psychological vector that's going to you. Anybody can share a particular ad that caught you. It's called a hook. Angular transactions always use a hook. So anybody here can share how you were hooked on
ma'am,
That fog
Ma'am,
deodorant.
deodorant.
that fair and lovely,
क्या
fair
चल
and
रहा
lovely
है?
ads.
One by one. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. I'll just see the participants. 1 second. Please raise your hand. So, Hina, tell me.
Ma'am, I don't know if sabne dekha hai nahi dekha, but there was a advertisement on Instagram where, there is a billboard and there is a bread on that billboard. And when you swipe your card, your credit card through that, a piece of that bread will fall off and this you will feed the poor. So basically, when you swipe the card, you're making a transaction, but it's a psychological message going to you that you kind of helping and supporting someone in that case.
Correct.
It's not a verbal thing, but more
Correct.
of
Yeah.
what do we say?
Correct.
Written
Like,
communication, something that's
yeah,
happening around that.
like most of these things will have donate 5 rupees for the poor. That's a typical psychological message. Actually, that is still overt. It's written, but we are talking about covert messages, right? Like it's not visible to you. They write that it is still overt. You can read it. This is more at the mind level, the message going to you. Like you have these Instagram things, right? Join this class for 99 rupees.
Yeah.
That is a message which is more social. But what is the message actually telling you? It's very cheap. That is not written there. It is very cheap is not written. But in your mind, that is the message coming to you. Oh, 99 rupees. Oh, this is very cheap. That way. But that's not mentioned there. So what is not mentioned there, but the message is coming to you, that becomes a Angular transaction. Ranika?
Then there are two things. One is like the fair and lovely ad saying that you will get the job if you use fair and lovely creams.
Yeah.
And the second is like nowadays, they will Kingfisher soda or Teachers
Kingfisher
brand,
soda.
whatever soda. So they're not exactly selling alcohol, but they will say water and soda and all this.
Correct. So the ulterior message that is going, or the psychological vector that is going from them to us, is something which is not spelled out in the ad. It can just be the person whom they like, the model. You are more interested in looking like the model. So you buy that, whatever you buy, soap, etc., shampoo, right? So the psychological message is not in what they are saying, but in the person that they are using to model that brand. So Angular transactions are very, very common as far as marketing, sales, all this is concerned. Okay. Yeah. Priyanka, you want to say something? Your hand is up. Priyanka, you're not clear, beta.
Yes,
Yeah,
basically
go on.
it's inferential. You infer, you
Yes.
don't, it's
Can you hear
not
me, ma'am?
literal.
Yes.
One of the most loaded ones that I came across was the iPhone messaging, which is if it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone.
Ah,
If you don't have an iPhone. It's just one statement, but it's loaded with ulterior communication.
absolutely. And you can see how children get influenced. They all want to have iPhones. Yeah, these are all Angular. These are all sales gimmicks. These are all gimmicks that are used. Now, I'm asking you, have you ever been hooked on? Have you ever been hooked on by an Angular transaction recently or maybe before? Anybody?
I find myself getting stuck. Yes, I
Mhm.
find myself getting sucked into it when say somebody in the family will say something like, this is like the same sales and this fella example, like, let's go here, but it's too expensive. And me being the rescue parent kicks in. I'm like, no, let's do it. I'll
Right.
do it. So
Very
it's
excellent,
always
Priyanka. You've got it. And Nitya?
Ma'am, like when you go to the pharmacy and you see this vitamins and some weight loss medicines with the, like, a lady with a belly and measuring tape, and then you feel like, oh yeah, I should take this so I get a better gut and everything. So
Correct,
I experienced that a lot.
Yeah. So see how we get fooled, na? So the next time you become more aware, right? When you see a advertisement or something like that, be aware of the psychological message that you are catching from the opposite person. Is something he's not saying, but saying to you. This way you become more aware. Eric Byrne said that the only way that you can catch these ulterior transactions if you are aware. Because if you're not aware at that moment, you'll be sucked into the whole thing. So this is actually a way of becoming more aware of psychological messages that come to us. Okay? So you'll have understood ulterior, you've understood the Angular transaction. Now let's look at the duplex transaction. Now the duplex transaction is also an ulterior transaction, one type of ulterior transaction, which involves 4 ego states, 2 in each person. Now, during the communication, there are 2 sets of complementary transactions occurring simultaneously. Again, one on social level and the other on psychological level. So you have a husband and a wife, husband to wife. Where is my ironed shirt? So the first stimulus goes like this. And the person says, where is my iron shirt? The response is at the same place. It seems very simple. It seems like a very simple complementary transaction. Husband is asking, where is my shirt? Wife responds, at the same place. But there is something happening here with the husband asking, where is my shirt? The psychological level, what have you done with my shirt again? So he's not speaking up, but there is a message going to the wife, what have you done with my shirt again? There's a sharp tone, tense face, brow furrowed. Okay? So one message is going from A to A, but the psychological vector is going from P to C. P of the husband to C of the wife. And the wife catches the psychological vector because the next response, you're always blaming me. Again, there's this psychological message that the wife is catching and throwing it to the husband from the C to the P, where the husband gets it from her because wife is whining, nibbling her nails, shoulders are drooping, and she says, at the same place. So see how important it is to look at the non-verbal responses. You're getting it? The ulterior transactions can only be understood if you are aware of the non-verbal responses that the person is showing you. In the husband's case, it is visible by tense face, sharp tone, and furrowed forehead. And from the wife's face, it is visible because she's whining, her tone is whining, shoulders are drooping, indicating that she is actually saying at the same place from an adult perspective, but in effect, the psychological message has gone to her. This is a very common way in which people speak. Have you heard couples talking, maybe in a restaurant, very adult? You know, what do you want to order? And then the husband is sending a psychological vector. You'll order the same thing. Then the wife says, whatever you want. And then the wife is sending that psychological vector. Yeah, you're just asking me for the sake of it. Actually, you don't mean it. So if you look at conversations, sometimes, and then you look at their facial expressions or tone, you will realize the psychological vectors that are going back and forth, though the conversation seems to be very, very blah, very, very simple. And you may think how nicely they're talking to each other. A to A transaction is going on. But andar kya ho raha hai? It is happening inside. You can infer from the irritated look of the wife or the husband that and this is something that sometimes you can catch with people. They'll say कि हाँ कुछ भी order कर लो, and then you'll say नहीं मुझे पता है कि तुम्हें ये पसंद नहीं, this you don't like this, you want to order something else. Have you noticed this when we say this in a restaurant? You are just saying yes like that. I know from your face you want to order something else. It's very commonly seen, right? So that awareness needs to come if actually relationships need to be open if relationships need to have open communication, which is what Eric Byrne spoke about also, then you need to become more aware of these duplicate transactions going back and forth. Anybody would like to share? I'm sure you'll have some examples. Anyone would like to share the duplicate transactions? Raise your hand. Yes, Rashim. Yeah, please speak, Rashim. Unmute karo. Unmute and speak. Rashim, do you want to speak? Then unmute and speak, please. Okay, anyone else can give an example of a duplicate transaction?
Ma'am, you are mute. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you say, Rashim?
Yeah.
Got disconnected, yeah. Unmute करके बोलो.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was saying, ma'am, कि वी हैव 3-4 ब्रदर सिस्टर्स। घर में से किसी के भी चीखने चिल्लाने की आवाज आती है, माय फादर वुड कॉल माय नेम वेयर एवर ही इज इन द हाउस, वट एवर ही इज डूइंग, इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ व्हाट किसी और ने भी किया होगा, एंड आई वुड रिस्पॉन्ड हिम बैक, मैं यहाँ पर हूँ। यू नो, ही इज बेसिकली सेइंग तुमने छेड़ा इसको। आई एम द एल्डेस्ट एंड आई एम सेइंग कि नहीं नहीं मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, आई एम सेइंग मैं यहाँ पर हूँ। एंड इट हैपेंस, इट हैज बीन हैपनिंग फॉर सो मेनी years.
Yeah.
It happens anyway. I think this is a duplex
Duplex
conversation.
transaction. Absolutely. Nitya, give an example.
Ma'am, same Reshim's example only. This happens in my home with my kids. So the little guy and the older one may be playing around, and the little guy might be screaming or something, and then I would be calling out the older one. I'd be like, Ameya, and then she would be like, Mama, I didn't do anything. And I'm like, no, you should understand, you being the oldest, you can actually explain to me what is happening there. This is the reason I keep calling you.
So
But the
Nitya,
message goes to her in a different way.
yeah, but Nitya, when you say this to the older one, think of
Yeah.
what the older one is sending you a psychological vector. You know, like, "Okay, what the hell, just because I'm the older one, you seem to be telling me this." So,
Yes,
see how,
yes.
yeah, correct. So just see how can relationships that we have as we grow older, they become like a belief. These kinds of, the next step is to understand how these transactions, when we continue behaving in the same way over and over again, then the elder one starts forming a belief that, I'm always the one who's wrong, or I'm always the one who has to be obedient. The psychological message that she's getting in time to comes becomes a belief. Are you understanding how a duplicate transaction over a period of time leads to a belief? Okay, Priyanka?
I notice sometimes, maybe this is cultural, but closed-ended responses like "theek hai" or "sure," said in a certain tone, often it just get categorized in these duplicate transactions because you're agreeing, the word is agreeable,
Correct.
but it's undercutting a whole emotional drama inside.
Correct. Absolutely right. So like I said, the non-verbal messages that the person gets is what the person is feeling and sending it to you. If you get it, great. You can say, it's okay. I know you're feeling upset. Instead of that person voicing it out to you, you catch the message and you voice it out to the person, suppose, then obviously the relationship becomes open and communicative. But if
And then you have
don't,
perhaps then one has to see which ego state to jump to. It can be from a fun child to a fun child to lighten it up.
yeah, it can be from it can be from a nurturing parent,
Right.
And then of course the opposite person feels nurtured, and then the relationship gets better. That is why, like, again, I want to say that awareness, to be aware, when we are speaking, we have to speak to the person, not at the person. You understand, no? When I speak at the person, like, it's like in a very combative manner. But if I speak to the person, seeing that person, then it can be very, very communicative. So most conversations are always at people, like hooking them. But
so, ma'am, does this mean that duplicate transactions are actually a great opportunity because they're in the complementary zone where two people, it's an exchange of sort of the same ego state,
correct.
But they reveal much more. And that's where a lot of the potential for improvement or
Yes.
taking action lies. Because in cross transaction, it's a conversation over.
Correct.
But in these kind of transactions is where one can get cues to repair or improve.
Absolutely right. Sometimes when a husband or a wife or whoever, a parent or somebody comes home and you go ahead and tell the parent, Papa, would you have a cup of tea? Actually, you've caught the psychological message in the father or the parent when he just slumps on the chair tired. And he says, bete, chai bana do. And the message going to you in a non-verbal manner is, I'm tired. He's not saying I'm tired. Have you noticed there are so many people tell me that I never say things. I just expect others to know it. Have you heard this? मैं कभी बोलता नहीं हूं, मैंने अपने बच्चों को कभी बोला नहीं है कि मैं इतनी मेहनत करता हूं. But I'm expecting my children to know that. और कई बच्चे भी हमें कहते, many children tell us also that, my father, my God, he was always fun. I don't know how he felt so sick, because they were not able to catch the psychological transaction or the psychological message coming to them from their parent that actually he was getting tired. So many children, many adult children, when they come to see me, they'll say, oh, my dad, he was a wonderful father. He worked so hard. He gave us everything. Ma'am, how did he die at the age of 45? He was a happy-go-lucky person. This is the social message that the father kept giving the children. And the children were unable to catch the psychological message coming to them. Can you see? I'm sure you're aware of these kind of conversations that you hear around. Yes? Yes or no? Have you heard such kind of conversations? Henna?
Yes,
Yes.
many times.
Yes, many times.
Yes. Henna? Want to say something, Mitra?
It could be also, could it be also possible that parents were not able to convey the message in the right way?
Sorry.
The parents were not able to convey the message in the right way?
Because they didn't want to trouble the children, or they wanted to appear that everything is okay. So they were sending psychological message, not they were not.
Yes.
But the children could not get it. So this kind of conversation, when I hear, that, oh, my dad is a happy-go-lucky person, you ask them what is the work that man does, they'll say, oh, he works very hard, he has a factory, he has to travel for 3 hours, go to work, come back 3 hours. I mean, obviously, the children haven't got it, that the father is going through stress. When you tell them, oh, your dad has gone through so much of stress, they'll say, no, he was always smiling. They're not getting it.
Yes. There's an example that I would like to give.
Yeah.
My daughter just had her tooth extracted, the wisdom teeth. And when the doctor told her that they're coming in the wrong direction, so she should get them extracted, she got them extracted like in 15 days. She set up an appointment and she got it done. My doctor is telling me to get my teeth extracted for over 9 to 10 months now. Every time I go, they say, you need to do this, they're getting infected. And I'm like, no, it's fine. So everybody in the house to me is like, why are you not getting that done? And reason why I'm not getting that done is because I feel like I can't rest. I'm not able to rest, leaving everything on everybody. And I know that I'm going to have to ask for everything, and nobody knows how I do my things, like how I take my milk, how I take my tea, how I eat, what I'll be eating when I have my 4 or 5 tooth extracted, So I keep telling them that, no, I'll get them extracted when I go to India. And everybody's like, is it about the money? And I'm like, well, it is about the money too, but it is about other things. But nobody is getting this message that I feel like I will not be taken care of well. And nobody wants to say that, hey, we will.
So they are not getting the message because they are not aware. You have not made them aware. And you yourself are under stress. So that means open
Yes.
communication needs to be done. You need to communicate. Ask yourself, what is happening? What is stopping you from communicating to them? Your own needs. It's important. Right? Good.
Should I just be telling them
Yeah.
that?
You can just tell them that I'm going to get my tooth extracted and this is the help I will need from you. That's all.
Okay.
Direct communication, complementary transaction, not ulterior. That's what you need to do. Correct?
Okay.
Okay. So now, the third rule of communication is the behavioral outcome of an ulterior transaction is determined at the psychological and not at the social level. The behavioral outcome of an ulterior transaction is determined at the psychological level, not at the social level. How you are behaving is at the psychological level, not at the social level, right, Tripti? So your behavior at the behavioral outcome is from the psychological level, not from the social level. Socially, so you're saying whatever you're saying, but internally you are feeling, why is it that they're not getting it? And then you're even not going back to the dentist to get your tooth extracted. So see what has happened. Look at the delay. Your behavior is being determined by your psychological vector and not by your social vector. Okay. Now there are multiple. Okay, let's go to another very interesting transaction called Carrom Transaction. So these are the three main transactions that I have made you all understand. Complementary, crossed, ulterior. Ulterior has got two, Angular and Duplex. Okay, this is in TA, this is commonly used, whatever we have studied so far. Now, there are other interesting transactions that Byrne speaks about. One is called Carrom Transaction. Very interesting. Carrom Transaction is a three-handed transaction. One person speaks to another while hoping to influence the third one who can overhear it. For example, a man may be too fearful to speak directly to his boss, so say something to a co-worker, hoping the boss will get the message. This is very common in families. Okay, father, mother, and child sitting. And the child tells the mother, hoping that the father will also hear it, I'm scared to speak to my father, but in front of my father, I say something to my mother. So my father overhears it. Okay, so this becomes a Carrom transaction. And maybe the father may respond also then. So an example can be, I tell my mother, like a child tells the mother, Mama, this Sunday, I want to go to Disneyland or I want to go to SL World. Please, Mama, please. The father is sitting there listening to it. Actually, the child knows very well that we can only go to SL World or Disneyland if my father can take us. My mother is not going to take me on my own. So that psychological vector is also being thrown at the father. Okay. And the father says, "Ha, beta, hum log chalenge this Sunday, SL World chalenge." Child did not speak to the father, spoke to the mother. But how the third person got involved, the third person's ego state got influenced, and then this becomes a Carrom transaction. Okay, it's a very commonly used transaction in relationships also, where you want the message to go to the third person, but you don't tell the third person, you tell the second person, but the message goes to the third person and your work is done. In such a transaction, your work generally gets done. Because third person, I mean, if he's overhearing and you know that this is going to work with him, then your transaction can be fruitful. Anybody can give me an example of a Carrom transaction? Three-handed transaction.
Ma'am, can I?
Huh.
Ma'am, can it be more than like three-handed? For example, in a classroom, if the teacher is scolding one child, but she's actually telling the whole group so that they also follow in line.
Yes, that is also possible. Yeah, because it's not one, like the other children become a combined PAC. Yeah, so that is possible. Baba?
And ma'am, many times on phone,
Yeah.
you are speaking on phone to someone else just to do the other person sitting
Correct.
beside you.
Very good. That's also a character.
So and so things.
Yeah. Baba?
Yes, hi. It's very common with pet owners who say, I'm not talking to you, like a wife says to the husband, and then starts talking to the dog, giving the message to the dog that she wants the husband to hear, like, oh, daddy is so nasty today. Something like that.
Absolutely, Baba. That's a very interesting thing. Yeah. The dog is also a PAC. So yeah, that's true. Okay, let's look at another one, which is, look at this. Again, this is a Carrom transaction. Like social media, the social media shows Carrom transactions, which could be multi-handed. Adult sends a stimulus to B and C. So this adult, okay, a person A, sends a stimulus to B and C. A also broadcasts the message to others out there. So I send a message, A sends a message to B, sends another message to C, and sends a broadcast message to others out there. B and C also send the same message to others out there. The message seems to be really important as it comes from multiple sources. Not, it's put on a virtual platform. Now it is put on a virtual platform. It was meant to be there by A. Actually, A wanted to put it on Google. Okay, she could have put it straight away on the virtual platform. It was meant to be there, but it had a Carrom effect. One here, two, and then they put it here, and then it went here. So multi-handed this is. It's a multi-handed Carrom transaction. This is what people do, na? They will write Om Sai Ram 5 times. Send it to 2 people. Those 2 people says, write Om Sai Ram 10 times. Send it to 5 people. Those 5 people write Om Sai Ram 100 times. And they put it on the virtual platform. Actually, A wanted it to be there only. But this is how it got, and then slowly gets onto the virtual platform. All these things that we do, kind of forward. This is all to do with social media. I sent the poem on Thinking Thursday, one platform, WhatsApp. Then each person there sends it forward. And eventually, after 3-4 days, I see that the poem has come on somebody's Facebook. What is it? I didn't put it on the Facebook because I didn't know how many people will read on Facebook because I don't have that many followers. Correct? So to gain more followers, this is a typical Carrom transaction that people do. Understood how it works? So this is a very interesting way of, yes, Ranika.
Ma'am, I'm just wondering, so these hashtag movements like the Me Too movement, can that also be in this?
It's nothing but a Carrom transaction. See, I don't know whether the movement will succeed. So I start playing around, sending it to 1, 2, 3 people. Those 2, 3 people send it forward to 5, 10, 100, 50, and then it becomes a movement. That's how it happens. Then we have one more interesting transaction called the Gallows transaction. This is very, very sweet. Somebody. Now, Gallows transaction, any smiling response to a person's misfortune may serve as a Gallows transaction. This inappropriate smile or laugh is described by Claude Steiner, one of the very foremost students of Eric Berne, as the Gallows transaction. Now, this is not said by Eric Berne. Okay? Claude Steiner has done a lot of work with TA, and he is speaking about a Gallows transaction. The smile serves to tighten the noose and destructive behavior is reinforced. So what is the smiling? So, somebody like somebody slips on a kind of banana peel and gets up and smiles. Oh no, it was okay. It was okay. I'm not hurt. Any smiling response to his own misfortune will serve as a Gallows transaction. Now, this behavior, Claude says, serves to tighten the noose and destructive behavior is reinforced. This is very important to understand. You keep apologizing. You keep apologizing for your mistakes. What happens? How do people respond? Can you tell me? When you keep apologizing for your mistakes to others, not even mistakes, just little oversight. Like, you've put less salt, something like that. Or just slipped a little bit. And you keep smiling. Though you are in trouble, you're in sorrow, you're in grief, you're in pain. What happens in time to come if this is the way you respond?
People start taking you for granted.
People don't take you seriously. They will not take you seriously. They say, kuch nahi hai. Arey, she's very nice, anything happens to her, she's always smiling.
She's very strong.
She's very strong. Yeah, she's very. What horrible statement this is, no? She's very strong. So your pain and grief, people are not acknowledging or attending to. Why? Because you have not allowed that to happen. And then people complain. Nobody cares about me. Nobody bothers about me. I do so much for others, but when I'm in trouble, nobody even looks at me. It's all your fault. It's all your doing. Because you have never allowed yourself to show the pain that you have. You want to hide behind the pain. You want to suppress the pain and then complain. This is called Gallows transaction. And I'm sure a lot of our seniors at home, even they are in pain, they will cook your favorite dish. No, I knew you were coming today for lunch, so I made this. I said, but you've got fever. Hey, kuch nahi hai, kuch nahi hai. Best sentence they have, kuch nahi hai. All is well. Like one of my Mamajis, my eldest Mamaji, who's now no longer there, he vacated his body. Every time I met him, I said, Mamaji, kaise ho? All well, all well. Then after many years, I saw that, his hands were trembling. Okay? Like holding a glass and all. I said, Mamaji, have you shown the doctor? The hands are trembling. Kuch nahi hai, 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 kya? It's a problem. I would go, he'd say, कुछ नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. मामा जी आप क्या हाथ शेक कर रहे हैं? Your hands are shaking. Your not balance is not proper. Why don't you show a doctor? I told my cousin brother. I said, why are you not taking it to the doctor? He said, बोल के थक गया मैं. I'm tired of talking. He's just not listening to me. He's just saying all is well, all is well. and eventually was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Delay, 3 years. He would go to the gym also, shaking. Yeah? So why are we doing this? Why can't we just seek help and say, I'm in pain, I'm in trouble. Can you come? Can you spend some time with me? You can, right? Again, we come to open communication. Byrne has stressed this over and over again. Open communication leads to autonomy. You become an autonomous person, empowered person if you can communicate openly. If you can't, then you will have all these transactions. Carrom transaction, Gallows transaction, and eventually you will land in trouble. Is
Ma'am,
everybody
what is the
understanding?
definition of open communication? Like, that means A to A. How do we define an open communication?
Open communication transactionally will mean that when I'm able to use my posture, gesture, facial expressions, words, and tone in sync with the transaction. So if I am in a P and I'm communicating to somebody with a P, let's say P2P transaction, I'm talking exactly what I want to say. If I'm having a conversation with an opposite person related to, let us say, my pain, let us say spouse, okay, wife and husband, P2P transaction. And I say, hey man, I just need help about this. Like, I have to clean the house. Can you please help me with it? Right? Maybe we can have tea a little later. I can speak from a critical parent to a nurturing parent to a critical parent, or A to A transaction can be done. Can you please pick me up? There is a lot of traffic, and the husband says, yeah, okay, just wait there. These are all open. I'm speaking my mind. If I'm in a C and I'm expecting some kind of nurturance from the opposite person's P, I can say, I'm not feeling well. Can you please sit with me today for half an hour and let us maybe play a game or chat because I'm feeling lonely. I can say that to my husband. I'm appealing to the NP from a C, from an AC maybe. Whining, complaining, and the opposite person's NP responds. That's an open communication, right? You can have an open communication from any particular ego state. So there's no specific ego state. All ego states can be involved in an open communication. When you use all your posture, gesture, tone, voice, and words together, communicating effectively, and you get the right response, that is an open communication. I'm from a
Being
C,
authentic,
I'm appealing
basically.
to P, and the P responds. Correct? So the P has got it, no? I don't cross the transaction. Complementary transactions are generally open kind of communication. Crossed transactions cannot be open communication. Ulterior transactions cannot be open communication. Correct? So when the transaction is complementary, that's when open communication happens. Okay? Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, now this is a lot, but you can read it. A gallows laugh is any laugh or smile which accompanies a discounting statement. So TA has another topic which is called discounting. We'll be doing it a little later. Maybe we can go through this just now, but which accompanies a discounting statement about either the self or someone else. Most discounting laughter comes from the adapted child. It may also come from parent as a direct reinforcement of her own or someone else's script behavior. In addition to pleasing some part of the other person's parent, a gallow laugh is intended to elicit approval from others by inviting them into a Gallows transaction. Just hold on. A Gallows transaction occurs when someone else laughs along with the person. Okay, let's just continue reading and then we'll explain. So a person who is suicidal they have a tendency to engage the therapist in Gallows transaction, and it is pertinent the therapist to avoid doing so. Now let's look at the transaction. It's basically ulterior. Social message: I got drunk and hurt myself last night. The patient is telling the therapist, I got drunk and hurt myself last night. It's an A to A transaction. The psychological covert message going is, ha ha ha, laugh with me. Give me strokes to support myself in a destructive manner. Okay, it's a destructive way of supporting. So the psychological message going from the patient to the therapist is, just laugh with me and make me feel good. Give me a positive stroke. Give me a positive stroke. Actually, the stroke is a destructive stroke, but for the patient, it seems to be a positive stroke. That somebody's going to laugh with me and make me feel okay. Okay. Now, the therapist laughs. What did the patient say? I got drunk and hurt myself. I got drunk and hurt myself last night. He's smiling. Okay. The social message going to the therapist is, he laughs. Psychological, I support and encourage your self-destructiveness. If the therapist laughs back, complying with the patient, the covert message going to the patient is, I support and encourage your self-destruction. Okay. So in effect, this is called a permission transaction. I give permission for you to hurt yourself. At deep, deep levels, can you see how transactions are happening? Covert messages going to the patient. Some kind of projective identification is taking place in the patient's mind. It does not matter if I drink. Even if I drink alcohol, my therapist supports me. So, therapy doesn't work. How many alcoholics go for therapy, but they never stop drinking? So many. So, as a therapist, we need to look at ourselves. We need to look at ourselves. When a client comes to us for their problem, what are we doing? Are we smiling at what the client is saying? Are we frowning at what the client is saying? Do we have any other methodology? Do we have any other methodology for the client to become aware of his problem? Do we have any other methodology? So I remember when I was working at the hospital, we used to have like bottles, bade jar wali, we used to have bottles in my own room. One bottle was about good things that you have done in the week, and so it was. There were red counters and there were I think blue counters. So when the client came to my cabin, the bottles used to be there. So they knew what they had to do. So I'd say, okay, can you please let me know, not by talking, let me know how many good things you have done for yourself in this week and how many things where you feel you need some help. And then they would take the counters from the box and they would put it in the bucket, in the jar. So I would know, what we need to speak about today. So if that person put one red counter, then I would say, would you like to tell me more about what happened, which was not helpful in this week? And then the person would talk. And then, it would be easy because I know that, person has done something which was unhelpful. I will always use the word unhelpful, not bad or, things like that. So unhelpful behaviors. Suppose if this client had come to me and told me, I got drunk and hurt myself last night, I would say, well, in the last 1 month, this is the 4th time that you have drunk. I would speak from the adult, asking this person to step in, not from the child, but from the adult. Because I would be aware, right? He's drunk again. So to make that client aware that, hey, in the last 1 month, this is the 4th time that you have drunk and hurt yourself. What do you want to say about it? So put the ball in his court. Don't get hooked by him asking you negative strokes. By you giving attention to his destructive behavior and saying, oh, poor you, where did you get hurt? What did you do when you got hurt? Did you go to the hospital? Show me where you got hurt. No. You are not the patient's parent. So don't behave like an NP to the patient. That's what the patient wants. He wants you to get into the NP, but don't do that. Stay in the adult and ask questions from the adult. So as a therapist, you must know you don't have to be CP nor NP. Don't get into the parent mode because that's exactly what they want us to do. Is everybody understanding what I'm saying? Okay. So this is very, very important for you all to understand. Okay. Now, the next slide. So one key word that you have heard here is discounting. It's a very important word in TA, and we will be talking about that a little later. Now, the next in TA is games. How gallows turn into games. These things are going to be taught later, okay? But because we're talking about gallows, we need to understand games. Does the laughter of the therapist provide anything for the client? Yes. It encourages the client by reinforcing his behavior to occur more often in the future. What you stroke is what you get. Please, this is a very important statement. What you stroke is what you get. This means the client interprets it as a permission from an authority figure, and so it's a permission transaction. I smile, I laugh, I've given the patient or the client a stroke. I approve, or I laugh along with you. This, the client interprets it as a permission because I'm in a figure of authority. So he gets permission from the authority figure, and so it becomes a permission transaction. When the client's behavior is repeated in other situations where he is in the AC and projects the other to be a pig parent, just hold on. A game has begun. The client's psychological message is, behave like my mother who said, don't exist, don't be good. What does this mean now? In other situations, so what is the therapist become? He's become the parent, but he has become the pig parent. The destructive part of the parent is called a pig parent. Now, moment the client sees the therapist as a pig parent, the message that he is getting from the therapist is, don't be good, don't exist. A completely opposite message than what the therapist should have given the client. That is why be very careful as a facilitator, healer, therapist, even as a friend for that matter, or as a spouse, what kind of message you are projecting to the opposite person. Do not laugh at that person's misfortune. Another example I can give you, financial loss. People in your family could be coming to you to discuss, or maybe in a group also. The person, oh my God, yeah, I lost ₹1 lakh today in stock market, yeah. And you respond and say, yeah, tu itna kamal hi hai. Huh? Karta kya hai tu? How do you know so much of money? You're smiling. At his misfortune, he does not even realize what he's doing and saying. He wants you to acknowledge him by laughing at him so that he can continue making these mistakes. This is the psychological message going to that person. यार मेरे दुख पे लोग हंसते हैं, मुझे भी हंसना चाहिए, या मुझे ये रिपीट करना चाहिए. Can you imagine this warped way of functioning? You know, there are friends, especially friends mein. Suppose this person who has been losing money in the stock market, 1 or 2 lakh, maybe over 6 months, he's lost money, and he goes to a party and he's standing with his friends and he comes in the party. 2-3 friends बोले, अरे आ गया अपना यार, ये ना लॉस करने में एक्सपर्ट है. He is expert at making losses. They are saying in jest. They are saying in humor. But what is the message this person gets? Oh, my friends laugh with me, not at me. Are you understanding? My friends laugh with me, not at me. And I want my friends. So let me continue doing this behavior. There are people who are jokers in a group, clowns in a group. Not that they like it, but that's the archetypal role that they seem to have taken. This, if it continues, the client will enter a game. Kick me can be one game. Or I ain't good. Or I am a bad boy. This will eventually lead him to creating a loser script. Everywhere he'll be a loser. Now these are TA words, okay? Games, script. So this is very, very important in TA. TA is all about games that we play with each other. And for that, Gallows transaction should be understood. Games allow a person to further their life script, the loser script. It is a way a person progresses along the path of the life script to its inevitable conclusion. Hence, the Gallows transaction supports the client's self-destructiveness by the therapist, assisting the client to move further along in the life script to its conclusion. Just this much, if you understand, it's good enough. Okay, as we move forward, you'll understand games also. But understand the Gallows permission transaction that takes place can actually make the client move towards a destructive loser script. The last transaction we have is called a bullseye transaction. A bullseye transaction occurs when a stimulus from one person appeals to all ego states, parent, adult, and child. It hooks all the 3 ego states simultaneously. A bullseye transaction is if I say something well-meaning to the opposite person, where I'm hooking the opposite person's all 3 ego states. Suppose I want to tell my child, I want my child to become compliant. I may say, I just met your friend's mother and she was praising you. What have I hooked? My child's parent first. Okay? Because she's definitely going to ask me, Mama, what did she say? Creating a complementary transaction. So I've hooked when I'll say, but you know, she was also saying that you are studying really well and you have helped her daughter because she didn't know science. I've hooked the adult now through a factual statement that I have made that you're very clever. And the child has been, and you know, and she's invited you for your friend's birthday party. So the child gets hooked. So with a single statement that I'm saying, I've hooked the child's parent, adult, and child, all three ego states. This child will be happiest the next moment because all her three ego states have been hooked and they're all happy, positive statements. Okay? This is called a bullseye transaction. Bullseye transaction addresses all three ego states simultaneously. Political leaders motivate their party workers in this way. This type of transaction is also used by sports coaches and restaurant managers to boost performance. This type of transaction is also used in counseling sessions. The main transaction is always AA. It also addresses P and C of the client. The P to install a value and C to comply with the process. You can read it once more. This type of transaction is also used in counseling sessions. The main transaction is AA, but it also addresses P and C of the client. The P to install a value and C to comply with the process. So I'm getting the compliant child to respond. At the same time, I'm installing a value. You're very clever, my child. That value is being installed in the P also. Political leaders. Can anybody tell me how this can be used by political leaders? Like Mr. Modi when he speaks. He's appealing to all ego states of the group, of the mob listening to him. Installing a value, which he does very well. Can you tell me some of the words he uses where he installs a value? Anyone? If you look at the way he speaks. First, he appeals to your adult. You know? Aaj hum, like he has his, kya kehte hain, that program which he has, Man Ki Baat. So in this Man Ki Baat, he first appeals to your adult. आ जाइए, आज हम इस विषय में बात करने वाले. We are going to talk on this topic, which is so important for you, for your children, so that they can be better citizens. They can be better people. Then he says 2, 3, 4 things which can make you a better person. So he installs value in your P. He appeals to your P. And then he'll say, chaliye sab baith jaiye. And he'll say some joke, appealing to your C. So when your P and C get engaged, whatever he's saying, factual data gets installed. So this is how bullseye transaction is used by a lot of political leaders. Maybe next time we can hear a small political speech. Okay? And then you will see how bullseye transactions are being used by political leaders everywhere. So if you all can find some transactions like that, political leaders transactions, please send it forward to me so I can put it up. Yeah.
Some songs like Chak De India, like
yeah,
Jai Ho.
These are basically kind of ulterior transactions. ये जो slogans है ना, Chak De India, Jai Ho. ये basically ulterior transactions which appeal, which have a psychological message going to you. Yeah, and they can have a bullseye effect also. Bullseye effect can be there. You will have to see how it is a bullseye thing for you. सबके लिए शायद नहीं हो, है ना? But it can have a bullseye effect.
Ma'am,
Yeah, Maya. Yes, Maya.
ma'am, one of the role played by Abhishek Bachchan, where he was playing a Dhirubhai Ambani's role, and where he had lost his voice, and he goes in the court and speaks for some time, and he influences the people. So I think so that can come under bullseye.
Yeah, it can come under a bullseye transaction. Correct, absolutely right. Yeah. Okay, so this was a long session, but we've completed all the transactions now. Complementary, crossed, ulterior, angular, duplex, bullseye transaction, gallows transaction, and what was one more? What have I missed?
Carrom.
Carrom transaction. Very good, Shruti. So these are all the transactions that go with it. So today I will put the TA book like a PDF. I'm just can't find it on my drive. But as soon as I find the PDF book, I'll put it up so you all can now start reading it. Okay? And the next class we'll be doing strokes. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
ma'am.